groove like Donald Trump for 45 minutes.
No.
The podcast you're about to listen to may contain objectionable language, adult and/or immature content, mentions of Jesus Christ, and unironic readings of Holy Christian Scriptures. If any of this is likely to offend you in a manner that you find less than enjoyable, maybe don't listen.
Hi, I'm Pastor Bob Schaefer.
I'm Pastor Erick Damon. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the Comedians with Pastors Talking Bible Short Take.
That's right, we're weekly now.
Well, kind of. We're putting some slightly irreverent, maybe funny, and maybe thought-provoking Bible commentary out there every week. We're still discussing the gospel text for the upcoming Sunday in the Revised Common Lectionary, and we are still doing it with comedians.
But every other week, we're going to drop the introductory banter with featured comedians and dive right into the scripture with our resident comic theologians.
I'm Eric Williams.
I'm Abby Evans. We're not
pastors.
Oh boy. Well, you know, our individual backgrounds play a big role in how we hear and respond to literally everything, but especially things like faith and the Bible. Pastor Eric and I are both pastors in a tradition that confesses the Bible as the inspired Word of God and the authoritative source and norm of our proclamation of Jesus Christ, which means that we try hard to remember that the Bible points us to Jesus and not the other way around. But we still approach the scriptures with great respect, and we view them as the ruler against which all things are measured.
All right, We're coming out of the can. You guys, not so much, but you have been respectful. You've been insightful, and most importantly, you've been funny in the times that you've joined us in the past. So thanks for agreeing to be regular contributors this season.
Thank you. What are we talking about this week, Bob?
This is what happens when you hand a script to stand-up comedians without telling them that you're going to hand them a script.
Especially with the unison parts. That's lovely.
It was definitely too much.
You didn't tell me it was double-sided. That's a relevant thing. Like, there were 2 pages.
This is a reminder that comedians don't like scripts, not because we like to be raw and authentic, but it's because we're all borderline on the autism spectrum.
Borderline?
But we are too lazy to try it again. We'll get it better in weeks coming in the future. Bob, what are we talking about this week?
We are talking about the second Sunday of Christmas, January 5th, 2025. And our gospel text is from the Gospel of John, chapter 1. In this text, John begins his gospel with this prologue, a hymn to the Word, through whom all things were created. This Word became flesh and brought grace and truth to the world. Here's the text. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or of the will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. John testified to him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks ahead of me, because he was before me.' From his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It is God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known."
So, Abby and Eric, I don't know how much you are aware in this text, but before we discuss it, it's probably worthwhile to point out that whole beginning passage, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word is Jesus Christ. That's when we talk about the Word. There is the written Word of God, which is the Bible. The living Word is Jesus Christ. So this is the passage that is used to back up Trinitarian thought, that Jesus has been with God since the beginning and is of one being with God.
And here I was thinking that the Word was Jesus' rap name.
Jesus' rap name. I think it could be too.
I think that would
if
be,
that is
yeah.
who you are.
Yeah.
That
would actually sell well, I feel like, with Christian youths. You guys would know more, but like...
I'm just really happy you guys said this was from January 5th and not January 6th.
You mean Epiphany?
Yeah, January 6th is Epiphany.
That's what January 6th. Yes, January
happen on January
6th
6th
is Epiphany. I'm gonna wait and see if you have an epiphany.
That's when the wise men show up. They have presents.
Oh, is that what? I didn't realize they were election truthers.
Do you not know your liturgical calendar, Eric?
Oh gosh, I am not looking forward to what's being taught in high schools in 2027.
Oh, it definitely will not be the revised Common Lectionary.
Yeah. I don't see liturgical calendars being introduced in schools regardless of what happens. But January 6th...
pretend I know what those words mean.
So the liturgical calendar is the calendar by which the church year flows. And so Christmas does not begin in the beginning of November or after Thanksgiving.
Oh, no.
It starts on December 25th and it ends on January 6th with Epiphany.
Okay,
and that's in between there are 12
through it all.
Hear that, Mariah Carey? Go back from whence you came.
You are lying to me. A liturgical calendar is clearly a calendar made by a book surgeon. I said something so stupid it shut us all up.
I need to go, guys.
That's been our show. Good night.
That's it. We're ending with book surgeons. No, I
9 minutes into the first try.
I think the place actually to grab a foothold. John is such a difficult gospel to discuss outside of inter-Christian traditions because it's just a mystical gospel. But
because he's the man in black.
That would be
wait,
Johnny.
Is that the wrong John?
That would be Johnny.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
John.
I lose syllables. It happens.
Yeah, John is Cougar Mellencamp. But
my favorite of the apostles.
if we grab a foothold in here, With the law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. All right, so John's gospel, for those who are unaware, does get
Not
really...
Johnny's.
Yeah, John's gospel, the fourth gospel, gets very problematic in its treating of the Jewish faith. And so there is definitely we want to walk gently on the contrast between the law being given through Moses and grace being given through Jesus Christ. But it is also a distinct part of the Christian proclamation that we receive grace that frees us from having to be trapped into the bondage from our own mistakes, that Jesus is what enables us to come forward. This is the proclamation that comes in the first chapter of John here, that the other John, not the John who wrote. We got too many Johns, but John, son
Unlike
of Zechariah,
most music festivals.
John the Baptizer is pointing to Jesus and saying that he's the one coming to give grace. And Bob and I get trapped inside church world enough that it gets difficult to understand how that's heard by people that are outside of church world. I mean, the 80-some-year-olds that I preach that to go, yay! And it's like cheering for the home team when we say it. And how do the two of you hear that the law that convicts us came before Jesus, and that grace that frees us from it comes after Jesus?
So first, this is the fourth verse of John, not to be confused with the American 4 album by Johnny Cash.
Which is excellent, but no.
Okay, I just wanted
All of the American recordings are worth your time.
I don't know. I feel like there are some American recordings that were really bad. Wait,
What?
Were you talking about Johnny Cash
All of
or the
Johnny
country?
Cash.
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah, there have definitely been poor recordings in America.
Hey, look, let's not measure recordings by the amount of money the recorder had.
But you were about to say something profound.
Oh, that's a nice illusion.
And you're going to just keep it from us now.
I kind of read it that, like, the law is Scientology and Jesus is just Tom Cruise. Like, I'm not saying this stuff. It's this corporation that's paying me millions of dollars.
I so need this unpacked more.
Good luck.
That was a very far stretch, very far metaphor.
Remember that Kirk
in
Cameron
my
is
mind-
already going to be suing us. Let's try to avoid.
I mean, I told you that we get trapped in church world and don't know how others hear it, but in my mind, Tom Cruise and Scientology are inseparable from one another.
Yes.
Okay,
but
wait.
Let's not forget that Scientology came way before Tom Cruise graced our screens in his aviator sunglasses, going on to the danger zone.
I was gonna.
You go. I was gonna say, like, I kind of view Tom Cruise as like Scientology's Jesus. Like, he is like he is their son of God, and their God being L. Ron Hubbard. And by son, I mean, like, I didn't give birth to you. I just am like, this is my son.
Okay,
that was I haven't fully explained my
that all
metaphor.
trash. You're good. I'm just still caught off guard with Eric saying he thinks Scientology is the star of Risky Business.
What don't you get about that?
Scientology did look pretty ripped in Top Gun Maverick. Scientology has aged well.
Okay, so like, what year does Tom Cruise's kid run for president as a member of the Scientology party?
Okay, but let's be honest, his kid is in the city, so we very well could get sued.
Wait.
His daughter goes to CMU, yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. So, what year does the future president of the United States run for president?
Boy, I feel like none of this was covered in the disclaimer.
All right, Bob. What are you preaching on January 5th? I'm not preaching on January 5th. I am participating in a joint Epiphany service in which someone else is preaching. So
it's the best description of a stoner circle I've ever heard. A joint Epiphany circle.
I do not know this far out what I'm yet preaching about,
what would you?
Yeah,
based upon this text.
I mean, so one thing that I think that I noticed with this is that, the law was given through Moses and not by Moses. I think the prepositions here matter, that the law wasn't Moses's invention. It was through him, and it was given. It was a gift. And so even when we look at John and we say, yeah, he's got kind of an adversarial relationship with the Jewish people around his community, even John is recognizing here that, as Martin Luther would say, the law is a good gift from God. We need the law. It is something, God doesn't give us crappy gifts. He gives us good stuff. And so although the law does convict us, it also is the thing that points us to goodness and grace. And so that is something that is worthwhile. So that's one thing I'd note there.
So if we're resting on the prepositions and the law came through Moses, we also have to wrestle with the law came through Jesus Christ and not from Jesus Christ.
Oh, grace and truth came through
Jesus Christ, which messes with the incarnational thought that, perhaps the Jesus as the human person is what I can't play with it enough. But
so we're just debating whether Jesus is a prism or a star.
Well, it depends on what the definition.
No, that is actually a solid analogy. Is Jesus Christ the person, the prism through which the truth of God passed, or is Jesus Christ actually just before this we had that he's the light that came into the world, which is the star. So but the through that Bob just had argues against that. We've got a conflict of prepositions versus statements.
Okay, but we've also got the whole. I'm going to make a weird argument here from the Unitarian quasi-atheist. So you've already brought up the Trinity in an argument. And I'm going to say if you can have a monotheistic religion that believes in a Trinity, then you can also have the contradictory coexistence going on here as well.
That's very Lutheran.
That's weird because I went to a Methodist college.
Yeah, Lutherans are very improv-like. Yes, and both and is what we do. That's.
I am not enough of a team player to do improv.
To fully play devil's advocate, I'm going to say that the play is called Jesus Christ Superstar, not Jesus Christ Super Prism. And if we're going off of the word.
Well, so is it possible that yes, God's grace exists in God's own self, right? But but that it's the incarnation of Jesus Christ that makes it manifest to us. So it's not exactly that Jesus is separate from and distinct from God, but the incarnation is a new thing. And it's that Jesus coming into the world and being made flesh and living among us, and that is the thing that grace and truth came through.
So Jesus is the star and God is the prism, or God is the star and Jesus is the prism, or it depends on the day.
So the triune God.
Okay, Trigun, I watched that anime.
Yeah, the triune God, all three would be the star. Jesus would be the person of the triune God that is the prism.
Star?
Yes.
Okay.
Trust me, if we dive into Trinitarian thought too much,
I will not like the math.
There will be a lot of edibles needed.
Okay, I'm on a good start then.
But if I'm following Bob, the triune God, the whole godness is the star. That's the light. Jesus came into the world, so is God, is the Word from the beginning, is the light that came into the world, but also because he came into the world, he is the lens, the prism through which we're able to see the light that we would not have been able to see if Jesus didn't come into the world. Am I following you correctly, Bob?
I think that was an excellent summary.
I want to take your astronomy class.
Merch opportunities are off the charts right now, guys.
If only we had somebody who would buy it.
As if Christian merch is a billion-dollar industry.
Okay, yeah, but how common is smart Christian merch? Oh, shots fired like I'm a public school student.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different. You can find different categories of Christian merch out there. And I mean,
is there atheist Christian merch? It's called Unitarian merch.
My favorite genre of
Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, my favorite genre of Christian merch are like those companies that like on their website they'll advertise like it's a Jesus sticker, it's Jesus, but then when you get it, it's like Jesus holding a pride flag, like ha ha. And you just funded the Trevor Project, you fools. And they're like, what's the Trevor Project?
You're making me use Google, you monsters.
So one of the things, and this will totally date me here, but one of the images that popped in my head as we're reading about the light shining in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. And I'm like having a Motel 6 moment thing here, that God leaving a light on for us. And yeah, you two millennials there are just kind of looking at me like, so lame. Eric knows what I'm talking about, though.
I know they'll leave the light on.
Tom Bodette and Motel 6 and yum yum.
You're an NPR listener enough that you've heard Tom Bodette get made fun of for his Motel 6 commercials.
Probably.
All right, so all of you pastors out there looking to preach on this, if you come up with something really good with Motel 6,
reference Tom Bodette.
We want to hear about that. You can email us at an address that doesn't exist.
Tom Bodette? I feel like you just told me about a Lord of the Rings character that they cut out of the movies.
Bombadil. He's in the new show, by the way. Tom Bombadil,
Good
not Tom
for
Bodette.
him. Amazon has enough money to get him. They know how to make it happen. They can find the guy the Peter Jackson couldn't.
Tom Bodette was beyond their reach. Just too big of a... Eric, yes. You had profundity.
I have no profundity, which sounds dirtier than it is. But I feel that the majority of folks that would lie into a leave the light on you sort of analogy are also falling into our camp, that are wrestling with the dark versus light imagery and the way that has been used throughout history too. And it makes me mad that it's been used that way, because dark, you can't see the danger that's coming, and light, you can see it. It should be an obvious, like, human beings have evolved to like living in places where we can see what's coming to get us and not. But it has been used historically to turn those with darker skin tones into being more evil and those with lighter skin tones into being less evil. And that is a, as much as it's not what was intended in the text, the history of it makes it something we have to wrestle with when we're going to talk about the darkness did not overcome it.
Okay, because what I was getting with the will leave the light on for you was, I forgot where I was going with that. I had a conclusion.
So I'm not going to preach with that one.
That is a solid podcast moment.
I had a thought, and now I don't. But I already started talking.
Well, let me offer another thought that I had, and maybe this will also go nowhere. So I was also taken with this idea that he was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. Yeah, this idea that, well, so it made me think about parents and how little we know about our parents. Like, one of the things that has really been a joy for me, I have a good relationship with both my parents, and getting to know them as human beings and discover who they are. They brought me into being. They brought me into this world, and thankfully didn't take me out of this world. And I like them as human beings. But even having had years to get to know them, I still know so very little. My dad was showing me pictures from his childhood and telling me stories about his dad, who passed away before I was born. And so there is this interesting experience, I think, of human beings. Even when we bring other human beings into the world, they don't know us. They'll never know us, and the sadness of that, but also that is just part of our human experience, and the idea that that's part of God's experience too.
Spoken like a true midwife.
I think there's something in just the ambiguity of it that we have to wrestle with. That if I were to be preaching this week, perhaps just sit in there in the fact that he is the light, but he came to testify to the light. He's been there from the beginning, and yet the light came through him. For the parent analogy that we create these children for as much as biology can
that
have.
proves the rule.
It is you have to. I think there's something to sit into that. The incarnation disrupts absolutes. And we all know only Siths preach in absolutes. And so absolutes are wicked and evil. And Jesus, by breaking in to creation, disrupted the absolutes.
Okay. So I know you were making a funny flippin' joke with the only Sith and absolutes, but I believe the whole belief in God is a whole conundrum in like quantum physics, because God is an absolute.
Well, and there's why I would say that Jesus becoming part of creation disrupted the absolute.
Well, but like, no, this is a whole thing with like Einstein. Like, I'm not messing around. I don't know if
my physics knowledge is not going to be able to speak with any accuracy about anything related to quantum physics. So I
like literally
can nod at you and say yes.
It becomes a whole debate between the science world and the religious world whether there can be an absolute. It approaches kind of like religion and science discussing whether or not there's free will. Like it's a whole historical thing.
It's true. There are all kinds of interesting discussions about that, including that we might be living in a hologram.
Philip K. Dick.
Yes.
That's my great aunt was his third of 5 wives.
Awesome. It's a shame that we're just about out of time.
We will talk about Philip K. Dick's third wife at a future moment.
And Dick. That sounds like I was like, hey, and we're going to talk about and Dick. Like it's a fucking Simpsons Mo prank call, but no, that's just her name.
Yep.
We're back on script now, so
We
for
are
those
back
of you
on-
following at home,
I feel like for anybody who was actually listening to try and find something to preach on the moment, that really, I mean, wrapping it up, I think there's something to get to in that our clinging to a scientific explanation isn't sinful. It's trying to use the intellect we were given by God, but if we're seeking to find the definition of God in absolute, repeatable experiments, we're on a fool's errand. We're not going to be able to do that. And I think there's something in the text that gives us the ambiguity to say that we can find God in the moments that don't need that level of proof. I don't think that's not a good sermon statement, but it's somewhere to start from.
I think that's enough.
Yeah. All right, thanks again, Abby and Eric, for joining us this whole season. Would you like to plug where folks can find you to either book you or find you in comedy?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at it's Abby E, ABBYE, and then booking wise, it's abbyeComedy@gmail.com.
I'm Comical Edubs at Gmail and also Comical Edubs on Instagram. And I will be hosting the Millville Mash at Grist House on December 9th, 2024. I will be at Corner Cafe for the funeral of 2024 with, oh my gosh, you, Eric.
Now, all of this will be in the past by the time folks are listening to this.
If you weren't there, it was either the best
so
time or the worst. It was amazing.
Via the DeLorean that you will acquire in the future, you can go back and watch the show. But I will also be hosting a birthday show January 25th, 2025 at Ernie B's Rock and Roll Barbershop. Tickets are available at eventbrite.com.
All right, well, thank you to everybody out there who's still listening. If you were offended, we're sorry.
But if you listen to this long, it's really your fault. We're not at all sorry.
Since you're still here, could you do us a favor? Be sure to subscribe to CPTB wherever you get your podcasts and share it with your family, friends, or pastors, anyone you think might enjoy it.
Or inflict it upon your enemies. We're not picky.
No, we are not. We'll be back next week with some featured comics that we get to know and see how they approach the gospel text.
Until then, may the Holy Spirit do her thing in your life.